This film is about texture. There are so many textures in nature, and watercolor is the perfect medium for interpreting those textures on paper. But likewise, these textures are the perfect inspiration for us to explore what watercolor can do, texture-wise, effect-wise.
Hey class, it's me, Miss Pybus, and we're just going to talk about different textures that watercolor can do. And we're going to go through some different types. I'm going to show you what they look like and how you can make them. So this first type is just going to be simply putting salt on your wet watercolor. You just sprinkle the salt on the top of your watercolor while it's wet, and then you can see later when it dries, it absorbs the color. So this next texture is really simple. All this lady is doing is she's impressing her hand on the watercolor to create some sort of texture while it's still wet. Now she's coming back to the top right watercolor that's already been dry and just dropping some water on top of it. As you can see, it's creating a texture as the wet water goes to the dry watercolor. This next technique is really well known. It's just wet on wet. So that means you paint the paper first with just water, and then you put on whatever colors you want, and they spread pretty rapidly together. And you want to do this pretty fast. This next one is also really well known. It's simply just dabbing some paper towels or tissue paper to your wet watercolor, just to create some texture wherever you want. This can be even used for clouds, for splashes and waves, and many other things that you want to appear to have texture. This next texture is really simple. You just paint whatever you want to be watercolored, and you put plastic wrap on the wet watercolor. And whenever you're ready and whenever it's dry, you can take it off and it creates this texture. This is also very similar. It's just a reverse idea. You paint the saran wrap first, and then you put a piece of paper on the saran wrap, and then you can move the watercolor around when you put the paper on. This texture is pretty unique, so you're going to mix about a tablespoon of salt into a cup of water, and you just mix it up and then apply the wet on wet technique. So you put down the salty water, and then you put on the color wherever you would like, and it's spread in this texture. This last texture is just dry brush. So you just use a minimal amount of water and you use your brush in the driest way and spread it across your page. Okay, we talked about all these different types of textures. You're definitely going to be expected to know how to do them later. So let's go practice them.
There are plenty of other textural effects you can create with watercolor. Find subjects that lend themselves to these techniques. Take risks. And above all, have fun.